Hello, science and dog enthusiasts. My name is Jason, aka Dad Guy. My co-host is
Chris Sikowski, aka Mummy Fave.
Every week on Tuesday in SciChat, we bring you an amazing expert to enthrall you with their area of knowledge, and we are mixing dogs and science together. Our guest is Lillian Mayer of the Middle Island Penguin Project. In short, scientists and conservationists train dogs to protect little tiny penguins. It's so adorable. Lillian, did I get your last name right?
Yes.
So
perfect.
You're calling from the future, right?
From the future, yes. 11 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday.
So it's not like it's wicked early or in the middle of the night when I talk to scientists from Europe. That's the worst time zone for us to talk to scientists, is if somebody's from, like, say, Germany.
This is perfect. It's very nice.
Yes. Now we have some Australian folks that were in our pet chat space, and Australia is going through winter right now. Is it quote unquote winter for you guys?
Yes, it's winter. It's quite cold down here on the southwest coast in Victoria at the moment. Had a lot of rain lately. It's been, it's not great weather.
Lillian, before we get into the nitty gritty of what this amazing project is, could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I did a Bachelor of Environmental Science in Wildlife and Conservation Biology at Deakin University in Melbourne, Victoria. And I finished that at the end of 2020. So did that one when we were in lockdown. So I did it from my childhood bedroom back home.
I have students that graduated a couple of years ago. I teach high school chemistry, and they did their first 2 years of university online, and anyways, I'm sorry I cut you off. I feel for you.
No, you're right. And then last year, so 2021, I spent that doing an honours year. So in Australia, an honours year, for me at least, was spending a year working on my own research project. So I did it on house mice, so pesky little mice that I assume that you guys would have over there in America as well.
House mice?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty
musculus.
Sorry, say that again?
Musculus, the scientific name.
Yep, we have mice.
Yeah, so I researched those mice in the Grampians. So the Grampians is a natural landscape. It's quite mountainy, and it is an undisturbed or mostly undisturbed. I think everywhere just about has disturbances now, but nice foresty, heathy area. And I researched house mice in that system, so an invasive species in that mostly natural system.
Okay. So from looking, well, actually, I got a couple questions about your background, if that's okay. So what got you into science in the first place? What was the science thing that made you go, I need to do this in my bedroom during COVID? Like, you have to have a lot of love for something you're studying. Yeah,
I guess I'd always been an outdoor kid, loved heading out in the bush. So I guess that's probably an Australian term, out into the forest, I guess. And believe it or not, and it does sound super cliche, but my parents, when I was younger, brought me down to Warnable for a holiday, and I learned about the Middle Island Project and this project that was using dogs to protect penguins. So it sounds super cliche to say that that's what started my interest. And then also the opportunity to study environmental science at high school.
Yeah.
That really just got me hooked. We went down to Phillip Island. So Phillip Island has a massive colony of little penguins. We got to watch the penguin parade and watch hundreds of these little penguins come to shore. And that's definitely one of my core memories of, I want to do this. I want to be one of those people out there researching these animals, and just got me hooked.
Okay, so it's not just, we'll get to Middle Island in a second. So you saw the little penguins that are on Middle Island in other places, and then went to Middle Island and learned about it. And you're like, this is a cool thing. It's time to go all in on science. Did I get kind of that right?
Yeah, so I just sort of, fell in love with wildlife and nature and penguins, and I learned about the project in Warnable, and then saw the little penguins that are on the Middle Island in Warnable on a school trip down to Phillip Island, and that had me.
Oh my goodness, because they are little penguins. So let's get right to the main story. And actually, just before we do that, for folks that are joining us for Science Chat, we have Lillian Mayer with us today. She's from the Middle Island Penguin Project, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I do an interview to start with, so everybody who's in the space gets to know the guest a little bit more, and then we'll open up the floor to questions from the community. Right now, we are triple casting from Twitter Spaces to Wisdom and Clubhouse. So hello to everybody who's listening across 3 different audio platforms. Okay, so here's the question. Could you tell everybody what Middle Island is? I've got a bunch of follow-up questions, but for people that are read the title, The Dogs Who Saved an Island of Penguins, they're probably curious.
Yeah, so Middle Island is a small island. It's about 2 hectares in size, and it's only a few hundred meters off the coast of Warnable, which is in southwest Victoria in Australia. And there's a little penguin colony that comes to shore to breed and nest on Middle Island.
Okay. And what was the issue with the penguins that lived on Middle Island?
So the issue is little penguins. You may have heard these guys referred to as blue penguins or fairy penguins. So blue because they are navy blue and white. So in the water, so when these little penguins are out in the ocean, swimming around, hunting, living their lives, that their belly is white. So if there's a predator underneath the little penguin, if it looks up, that white belly is going to blend in with the sky and the ocean and the light coming through. So it's going to be pretty camouflage. And the same thing if there's something above the little penguin, so maybe a sea eagle or something like that, and it looks down, that navy blue back is going to blend in with the ocean. And again, it's going to be camouflage. So that helps to protect the little penguins when they're in the water. But when they're on land, they don't actually have any way to protect themselves from predators. So when they come to shore, they wait until it's dark so that they can come under the cover of night.
Oh, my goodness.
So keeping that in mind, if we add foxes, so foxes are not native to Australia. They are an introduced pest species, and they prey on a lot of our native wildlife. So they've caused a lot of decline in different populations. So Middle Island, as I said, a couple hundred metres offshore. So it is accessible if the tide is low enough to get across. So that's why or how we can get across to the island. But unfortunately, just as we can get across, foxes worked out that they could also cross over to this island.
Oh.
Now, foxes, we know, are more active at nighttime. And this is when we are seeing our little penguins come to shore, our little penguins that don't have predator aversion on land. So they are very susceptible to the foxes. So unfortunately, the foxes, worked out they cross the island and prey on the penguins. So that has resulted in a decline in the penguin numbers on Middle Island, unfortunately.
Now, how did it happen all at once? I guess I have a couple questions. What is the average, how many penguins were on Middle Island before the foxes started to get them?
In 1999, there was a student at Deakin University. So the university that I studied at in Melbourne also has a campus in Warnable. Mm-hmm. So a student was investigating the little penguin population of Middle Island, and her estimate for that 1999 breeding season was over 800 penguins.
Oh, 800.
that's quite a lot for a small island. It's absolutely amazing to imagine. But unfortunately, by 2006, with these foxes crossing to the island, the population actually got down to 4 penguins.
4 penguins.
4.
Oh my.
Yes.
Now, for everybody who wants to see what these little penguins look like, if you're on Twitter, I'll put this on Clubhouse too. I have a link to little penguins eBird. They're adorable. They're tiny, right? Like these penguins are, I read they're like 30 to 40 centimeters tall. Like they're just little tiny things.
Yeah, they're the smallest penguin species, hence their name.
Like, okay, so just like twice the size of a Coke can?
Figuring Out Family isn't your ordinary podcast. It's a completely new experience that helps you make your family the best it can be by giving you the deep insights to help your family thrive. You'll learn how to help your family have more productive conversations and manage life's disappointments too. You'll feel inspired by the special guests that are experts in their field of family relationships. Get valuable tips for dealing with difficult family members, repair broken relationships, improving your parenting skills, and keeping your children happy and healthy. Check it out now.
I guess so.
Or should we compare things to bananas? Because that's what everybody compares things on the internet, like banana for scale.
Yeah, maybe like a big banana and a half, maybe.
1.5 bananas. Anyways, if you want to see what they look like, it's in the nest. Sorry, Lillian, did you lose your mic?
No, sorry, just winter in Australia. I just got a bit of a cough. Didn't want you guys to hear.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, the same thing for me. I sometimes have to mute myself when I have a cough, or Chris has to mute herself when Bunsen and Beaker start to bark because she's upstairs with them. So, 800 to 4. That is catastrophic. I'm just so sad. These little penguins are so cute. So herein lies one of the most wholesome conservation stories I've ever heard in my entire life. So wholesome, in fact, a movie was made about this. What and how did the story progress to after the catastrophic loss of the penguins from 800 to 4? I'll let you tell it.
So, yeah, quite a devastating loss there. And just it's not real. I like my fun facts, but this isn't really a fun fact. It's more of a sad fact, I guess. So the foxes killing these penguins, they do what we call thrill kill. So they're not just hunting a bird or a couple of birds a night to get what they need to eat and survive, but they're actually killing for fun, pretty much. So a single fox, it's pretty horrible. So a single fox in a single night could actually kill up to 100 individual birds.
What?
So
what a bunch of a-holes. They're so, but you know what? We have foxes that get into chicken coops in Canada, and they'll straight up like just eat like a little tiny bit of a chicken, and then you'll find like, a whole bunch of them got murdered in the night.
Yeah, so they tend to just kill and leave it. They don't,
Oh, okay.
Eat it a lot. Mm.
And, okay, so continue. I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, you're right. So, yeah, the community was worried. You've seen the population of penguins decrease. They were trying everything. The council, so Warnable City Council, were undertaking fox management. So they were baiting, they were shooting, trapping, doing everything they could pretty much to try and control the foxes, but it just wasn't working. So everyone was scratching their heads thinking, what can we do? What can we do? And it was around this time there was another Deakin student, third-year marine biology student, David Williams. He was working at a chicken farm in his spare time between volunteering for Warnable Coast Care Land Care Network and that kind of thing. And this chicken farm, as if you have seen the movie Oddball, you might know, was Swampy Marsh's chicken farm.
Swampy, I love that.
Yeah. So Swampy was using Marama dogs to protect his chickens. Just like you said, in Canada, sometimes foxes get into the chicken coops. So we have the same issue here in Australia. And yeah, Swampy on his farm, he had free-range chickens. So he was using Marama dogs to protect the chickens from foxes, as well as things like stray dogs and wild dogs. So Maramas are an Italian guardian dog breed. So in Australia, it's quite common to use kelpies or healers or other sheep and cattle dog in with your livestock, but they tend to round up those animals. Whereas guardian dogs, they're a livestock breed as well, but they're used to protect. So they either scare off predators, so foxes, for example, just often by the scent being in the air. So the smell of a big dog in the area can generally keep a fox away. So that's what we call the first line of defense, is the scent of the Marama. The second line of defense would then be that scaring away. So barking, Maramas have quite a deep, scary bark. And then third line of defense, if they need to, if there's a particularly brave fox, they will chase away that fox or whatever it is. So Swampy was using these Maramas to do exactly that, to protect his chickens. And he was having a conversation to David Williams, and Swampy famously said, "You need to get a couple of Maramas out there. After all, penguins are just chickens in fancy dinner suits." So that crazy idea is where the idea started, to use Marama guardian dogs over on Middle Island to keep the foxes away. So that's how the project started.
Okay, so Marama guardian dogs, are they instinctual to protect, or do they have to be trained to protect chickens? And then that got somehow transferred to penguins? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so you're absolutely spot on. So Maramas are a guardian breed, so they do have that natural instinct to protect. But for Middle Island and for if you're using them for chickens, you raise them to learn to protect whatever that specific thing that they're protecting are. So over in Italy, originally used for livestock like goats and sheep and that kind of thing, to protect them from wolves, which is kind of cool. And yeah, so whatever it is that you want them to protect, that's what you need to raise them to learn that that's what they need to protect. So in the example of Middle Island and penguins, obviously we don't want to be going over on the island and grabbing penguins to bring to the farm to train our dogs to protect them. So what we actually do is raise them with chickens. So we bring them up, getting familiar with the chickens, learning that that's what they need to protect, because, you know, in the eyes of a dog, a flightless bird in the form of chicken is pretty much equal to other flightless birds and even birds that do fly. So by training to protect the chickens, they are going to protect penguins. We also have a breeding colony of short-tailed shearwaters over on Middle Island, so our dogs also protect those. And sooty oyster catchers, pied cormorants, all the bird life over on Middle Island, our dogs protect as well.
Now, I'm just posting some information for everybody on Twitter. It's just taking a second. If you don't know what these Maramas look like, could you maybe explain to people who maybe can't see the pictures? Maybe we have some non-sighted people listening.
Absolutely. So our Maramas are pretty much pure white, believe it or not. They love their work, so they love getting dirty, so they don't always appear to be white, but they are a white dog breed. Now, these Maramas, got an actual fun fact for you all. So Maramas are more closely related to wolves than normal domestic dogs because they're such an ancient breed. So that might give you a bit of an idea of the size of dog that we're talking about. So our Maramas, the males weigh about 50 kilos or even a couple of kilos more than 50 kilos. I'm not sure if you use kilograms, and I'm sorry, I have no idea what that would be.
We use kilograms in Canada, but the Americans might be bamboozled a bit. It's okay.
Beautiful.
It's okay.
Well, might have to Google that one. But yeah, we've got, and they're quite tall too. So
what was the kilograms again? While you're talking, I'll convert it for everybody.
we'll say on average 50 kilos.
Okay, so they're just about 100 pounds.
There you go.
110.
110.
110.
Yeah, they're bigger than Bunsen. So if you know who Bunsen is, Bunsen's our burner. He's a large breed dog. These are bigger than Bunsen.
Greetings from Film the World Podcast. I'm your host, Trick O'Moore. I would like to extend an invitation for y'all to come check out our podcast. We take a look at book reviews, one a week, movies, music, pop culture, and UAP. Our hottest download is Dreamland from George Knapp's Bob Lazar saga. Thanks for checking out Film the World Podcast.
Yeah, so they're big and white. And they're like long fur as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for explaining. And in the nest, and then I'm trying to get this also to Clubhouse. There is a link to the Marama sheepdog, and you can see what they look like. They are great big white, how big they are, their description. I went to, there's a lot of ads on this site, so I'm sorry for that. There's some ads for dresses. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it was the first one I found that okay, so maybe I should have been more prepared. So back to you, Liliian. These dogs protect chickens, and do they get taken to Middle Island to then swap out their chicken protecting duties to penguin protecting duties?
Yeah, absolutely. So we learned pretty early on in the project that the Maramas need to be bonded to the island from a very young age so that they know that that's their area to protect.
Oh.
So, yeah, if we jump back in the history of the project, Oddball, believe it or not, was the first dog that went to Middle Island to start protecting the penguins. Now, Oddball was Swampy's pet, so she liked being inside, sleeping on the bed, wasn't so much of a guardian. And she got pretty lonely out on the island as well. We learned, it's best to have at least 2 dogs out there so they've got company.
Right.
So even though Oddball didn't stay on in her role as a Middle Island guardian because she liked people more, the project or the trials continued, but this time with 2 dogs so that there was company for each other, and the dogs were also proper guardians from another farm. And again, it worked. So while Oddball was on the island and while these next 2 dogs, Electra and Neve, were on the island, there weren't any fox kills. So it was working,
Wow.
but we were still learning things. So even though now we had 2 proper guardians out on the island, we learnt that, yes, it works, but these dogs aren't bonded. It's not their territory. So that's when the project got its very first 2 dogs, Yudi and Chula, and they were taken to the island from a very young age. They started just going over for visits with their trainers before they continued their training with chickens, and then were eventually left on the island by themselves. So they are taken from a young age. They can bond to the island, and then also they are raised with chickens from this young age so that they learn that that's what they need to protect. So while they're not on the island, when they are training and also when they're having a break from the island, they live at a farm. And at that farm, they have chickens because the Maramas have that strong natural guardian instinct. So it's not possible to take them off the island and say, okay, you're off duty now. They've always got to have that something to protect.
Oh my goodness. They're like I feel seen. I can't stop working. It's like these dogs are me. I'm on summer holidays from teaching, and I'm just as busy now as I was when I was teaching. Okay.
Yeah, so that instinct. I think, did you share a post or a tweet about Chula just before? Did I see that come up?
I'm putting some of I put some of the, you have new guardians on the island Mizo and Isola.
Yes.
And then there was a tweet. I just didn't have time to read it, and it looked like sadly Tula has gone onto the Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah, so both Yudi and Chula, those two original guardian dogs, last year in 2021 were both put down at different times of the years because they had different health issues associated with their age. So Oddball is the dog that we all know. There's a movie about Oddball, pretty famous around the world. But Yudi and Chula are the two dogs that saw that penguin colony on Middle Island go from 4 to over 200. So they spent 8 and 11 seasons protecting Middle Island. So they are the true heroes of the project. But yeah, now we have those 3 guardian dogs that you've shared. So Metso, Isola, and Oberon. And Yudi and Chula played such an important role in training those younger guardians. So Yudi and Chula's legacy certainly lives on within the project still.
Could you talk to everybody a little bit about the movie Oddball? Because that's like, to have a movie made about the project. I think it came out in 2015, so it's a while ago. Could you talk a little bit about that movie? Do you know much about it? I know you were around with the project at that time, but it's very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. And like the movie Oddball is probably, I watched that and learn about the project and was like, hey, this is really cool. Like I definitely credit the movie with my career path ending up where it has. So Oddball, yeah, it's a big motion picture and it was filmed in and around Warnable, and it just follows the story of the project. Obviously, it's a bit dramatized and that kind of thing, but yeah, it's really great, I guess, publicity for the project as well. We do educational talks in Warnable about the project, and I often ask, who's heard of the Middle Island Project? And you might get 1 or 2 hands up. As soon as you go, okay, who's seen the movie Oddball? That's when you get all the hands going up. So it's definitely helped spread word about the project. It is such a unique project. Dogs had never been used in wildlife conservation pretty much anywhere in the world before this project. And now there are other projects using dogs in conservation, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I want to say I did after I had Dr. Patricia Corbett on my on the Science Podcast. Is Dr. Corbett still with the project?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay.
Yeah.
I love her. She's so good.
Yes, I love Trish as well. Trish is the one who got me involved in the project. Gave me the chance to do placement at the project when I was still completing my degree, and now she couldn't get rid of me, and now I'm here.
Anyways, after she was on the podcast, I started to notice, because I was actively searching for it, places around the world started to pop up where they use dogs as a conservation tool. Anywhere from protection dogs like the Marama to detection dogs that were trained to detect animal scat or poop or scents, and not to track them down to kill them, but for biologists to track down these endangered species to then monitor them. And I want to say before that time, I hadn't seen or heard much about any of this. So it might be like the Middle Island Project spawned this use of dog technology throughout the entire world, which is so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The method that was used on Middle Island, so using the guardian dogs to protect a species, so to protect the little penguins, was actually coined the Warnable method of wildlife conservation, that's pretty cool, I think.
That is pretty cool. So, Lillian, if people come to Warnable Well, first off, where is Warnable? Did you say where it was in reference in Australia? I'm sorry.
So it's on the southwest coast of
Southwest
Victoria.
Of Victoria. Okay. All right. Perfect. So if people come there, do you do like, is there ecotourism around this? Can you hop on a boat and go see Middle Island, or is it all like see it from afar kind of thing? I don't know.
Yeah, so Middle Island is closed to the public for the conservation efforts. So yes, foxes were a massive contributor to the penguin population declining, but it was also found that people walking over on the island was impacting the colony as well, because the penguins burrow into the sand. So if we're walking over the island, we're often crushing burrows without knowing it. So yeah, Middle Island is closed to the public, so can't head out there, but the Middle Island Project does run educational experiences. So we tend to run these over the summer holidays. So in Australia, summer being sort of December, January.
Okay.
And this involves learning about the penguin colony, so about little penguins, their breeding, their life cycles, how we actually monitor the population over on Middle Island. And then we head down to the beach on the mainland side of the island, so we're not actually crossing over, but we head down there so we can have a look at the island, and we learn about the history of the project, how it started, and the dogs and the different roles that they have as well.
Very cool. Kendra has just DM'd me and said, in case people are looking for it, you can borrow Oddball on Hoopla, which is a digital library. So I think maybe Kendra can send me more information about that. And I'm behind the scenes. I'm googling where can you watch Oddball. It looks like it's on Amazon Prime and maybe Netflix. I could be wrong about that.
I know in Australia it's on Netflix and Stan, but I also know that we have different content.
Right. Yeah, there's like the Canadian Netflix and then there's the American Netflix. And when Chris and I traveled to the States, we're like, ooh, let's see what's on the American Netflix. And we're like, oh my goodness, look at all these shows.
It's so much better.
Oh, but wait, you know what? We have one up on the Americans. So sorry, Americans listening. We still have The Office on Canadian Netflix, and that was taken off the American Netflix. I think you got to pay for that special down south. It's small wins. So, Lillian, what's your career path plan? Are you sticking around with this project for a while?
Yeah, I definitely want to be here as long as I can. Yeah, I love it. I literally, it's my dream job. For as long as I can, I'll definitely be here. I am really interested in wildlife and conservation. So, yeah, I couldn't ask for anything more than to be working for the Middle Island Project here in Warnable.
Now, I've got a couple more questions, and I guess I'll do a little reset here. I'm just so excited to chat about this. If you're listening right now, we have Lillian Mayer, who's one of the scientists that works at the Middle Island Penguin Project, which trained guardian dogs, Maramas, there we go, to protect little penguins that were getting snacked on by foxes. And in a second, we're going to open up the floor to questions from the community. So a couple questions are, is there government funds for this? Like, does the government fund this project? Is it international? I'm just curious because sometimes you have to apply for grants for conservation efforts.
Yeah, no, great question. The Middle Island Project is mostly a community-run project. It is currently being managed by Warnable City Council, who do provide some funding for the operational side of things, but we mostly rely on our incredible sponsors. So Petstock, I'm not sure if that's an international chain, but Petstock is a pet shop company.
Okay.
And they have a store in Warnable, and they sponsor all of the dog food for our dogs. So at the moment, that's 5 50-kilo dogs. So that amounts to about $10,000 a year. And they also provide other support and other discounts. And so, yeah, they're absolutely amazing. Couldn't do it without them. And then the vet group in Warnable, so that's a veterinary company. They do all of the dogs' fleeing, worming, vaccinations, annual checkups, grooming as well. So they are other major sponsors. So their support is also massive and, yeah, couldn't do it without them. And then we are supported by Deakin University. So the university that has a campus here in Warrnambool, Flagstaff Hill, which is a maritime village in Warrnambool. We work really closely with Warrnambool Coast Care Land Care Network, so they look after the penguin monitoring side of things. And Fitz Media is a local media company in Warrnambool who also do a lot for us as well. So our sponsors play a massive part in keeping the program going. And then the other way, and the main way that we get income to cover our costs, is through running our educational experiences. So when people book an experience with us, all the funds from that are going straight back into the project. And then donations as well are incredibly helpful. So that's, sort of how the project is funded and supported.
Okay. I'm glad I asked. Thank you for answering that question. Because sometimes I talk to scientists all the time, and a lot of their research is at the behest or at the whim of getting their grants approved. So I was just curious on the funding. So Paula from Twitter, she said that in the United States, Oddball is on Amazon Prime. So there you go. I watched the trailer, I don't know, maybe 10 times, and I just tear up every single time. Like there's some goofy silliness, and then when the music starts and the dogs are protecting the penguins, I just get a little weepy because dogs are just so good. They're just amazing creatures.
They certainly are.
Now, okay, so my last question is, as somebody who deals, you live and breathe this project, Liliian, do you get to spend time with the dogs, or are they kind of like the celebrities? You see them from afar kind of thing.
I'm pretty lucky. I also work as a dog handler for the project. So I am involved with the day-to-day care and training and movement of the dogs as well.
In the new crew, is there one that's your favorite, or are they all just good doggos?
They're all good. It's like children. You can't choose a favorite.
That's true. If somebody was to ask me who my favorite was, Bunsen or Beaker, I definitely couldn't tell you. They're different and they're both amazing. Okay. Liliian, are you okay to take some questions from the community?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to invite some people up who are requesting to speak. Now, remember, we're going to keep our questions on topic to Middle Island. So if you got questions about the little penguins, if you got questions about the dogs, if you got questions about the project, go ahead. The other thing is we're only going to let people up to ask questions who we've vetted and whose account looks safe. This is a science room. It's a safe space. So if your account is locked, or if we do a quick check and we're like, whoa, what has this person been tweeting? You may not get up to ask a question. So that's how that's going to run. Chris, do you need any help bringing people up? Chris is my co-hostess with the mostest. And I'm sorry about the notification beeps. It's coming from one of my devices and I can't find which one is doing it. I'm so sorry about that. It's either my other phone running to Wisdom, maybe something on my computer. I can't find it. I apologize for the beeps. Not very professional, but that's what happens when you have somebody like a teacher running this thing. Is we're not, we miss things in the details. Chris, are you inviting people up, or do you need some help?
I've invited people up.
Okay.
We'll start with Andrew.
Okay.
And then Ramona, then Tracy, and then Alex.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Ramona, you're up. Do you have a question for Liliian from Middle Island?
I do, but I thought Chris said Andrew was first.
Oh, Andrew was first? Oops.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Sorry. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Wait a second. I got a sound effect for that. It's a whole...
Hey.
This is just me today with my beeping something, and I screwed up the order. Andrew, I'm sorry.
No problem, Jason. Hey, Lillian. Oh, God, this is so good. She answered part of my question already. I'm just trying to visualize everything in my mind, And I was wondering about the dogs, and I was wondering if they're used as guard dogs throughout Australia or only in this specific project. And I don't know, I may be wrong, but it sounded like Lillian, sort of communicated that all the resources are pretty much local, even though the breed is Italian. So that's my question. And
Great question.
yeah, just one other quick question. I just wondered how many dogs at any given time are on the island. Thank you.
I might start with that one. So we always have at least 2 dogs over on Middle Island because we don't want to just have one over there and that dog to get lonely. So we always have at least 2, and normally it is 2. If we're training dogs or that kind of thing, that's when we might have 3 dogs over there. But definitely always at least 2 dogs on the island at any one time. And we do like to have 3 fully trained guardian dogs that can go over onto the island. So if one of our dogs needs to come off the island, we can simply swap that dog out rather than taking both dogs off the island. And then the other question about Maramas and the guardian work in Australia, I'll try and answer this, but let me know if I don't quite answer your point. So in terms of farms and farmers using Maramas to protect their livestock, so sheep in particular and chickens, they are actually quite common. So I personally don't know if that's always been a thing or if it's more common now that the project has been so successful and people are more aware of Maramas being used as guardian dogs. But certainly around this area, so around southwest Victoria, it is quite common for people to have Maramas on their farms that are working as guardians. Then in terms of guardians in wildlife conservation, David Williams, who was very instrumental in getting the project up and running in its early days, he's gone on to Zoos Victoria, and they have started a Marama guardian program where they're using Maramas in bandicoot conservation. So bandicoots are a small Australian mammal that also has been impacted by invasive species and also the clearing of habitat and that kind of thing. So yeah,
also in a very popular PlayStation video game, Lillian.
Oh yes, of course, Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, but does that kind of answer your question, or did I miss the point there?
No, it's perfect. Thank you, Lillian. Great. Thank you.
No worries, Andrew.
Great question, Andrew. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we're over to Ramona. Is that correct, Chris? Or do I have to play the sad trombone on my soundboard again?
I think you're right this time, Jason.
Okay.
Lillian, I may have missed it. I was multitasking a little bit at the very beginning. How many penguins are on the island now? I heard, the 800 and then down to 4, but what's your population like today?
The population did increase back over to 200 it was 250 in the 2016 penguin season. So, under the watchful eye, Beauty and Chula there, we saw the population increase to over 200 penguins there. The question of what about today is the $1 million question. This past season, it was actually really hard for us to undertake the normal penguin monitoring program. So breeding season for the little penguins nicely for us coincides with the warmer summer months. So that's when most of our penguin monitoring efforts occur. This also coincided with a massive COVID outbreak in Victoria. So that impacted the monitoring because we had a lot of the team out sick and we all tended to, one of us would get it and then would just be coming back and another one would get it and that kind of thing. So that was one reason we couldn't really do much monitoring this season. And then the other one is the crossing. So it's only a couple 100 meters offshore the island, but we can normally only access it at low tide. But sometimes, even when the tide is low, it is difficult to get across because we have so many different factors affecting it. So we have a river coming in at about the same location, and sometimes that can cut the sand out, so wash the sand away and expose the reef and make it quite deep. Same with different tides, swells, the wind, all these different factors affecting it, which means sometimes even at low tide, it's not safe for us to get across the island. And this past season, it was like that a lot. So we couldn't get across. So we actually didn't do enough monitoring to get an estimate. So I don't actually have an answer for that one. But now the Warnable Coast Care Land Care Network has purchased these amazing cameras that we'll be able to put over on the island. And what that's going to do is allow us to monitor that population even when we can't get across.
That's awesome. Thanks, Lillian. And I remember from the movie that crossing looked a little treacherous sometimes, and I didn't know if that was dramatized for the movie or if it was real. So thanks for that additional information, and thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
No worries, Ramona. And just on that, with the crossing being dangerous, earlier, Jason, you mentioned about can people go out in a boat? Well, a fun fact, maybe this one's not really fun, but it's certainly a fact. If we can't actually walk across, there's no way boats can get across. It's too dangerous and unpredictable.
Gotcha. You do see that in movies sometimes. It's like, a lot of people only know Calgary, Alberta, Canada from this John Candy movie called Cool Runnings, where he was the coach of the Jamaican bobsled team. Has anybody seen Cool Runnings? It's this famous okay, we have some hearts and some laughs. It's an older movie because John Candy is an older comedian that sadly died. He's Canadian. Anyways, it was about the bobsled team from Jamaica, and it was like so dramatized. Everything was like completely dramatized with that. It was, a very good movie, but not necessarily accurate. So I can imagine with the dramatization of the crossing, there's like sketchy waves and jagged rocks, but it could be like that, I guess, Lillian, you're saying. Like it's a sketchy cross.
Yeah, a lot of things in the movie dramatized, but that crossing certainly can get quite dangerous.
Another thing that's interesting about the movie is they switched the sex of the dog, right? Oddball in the movie's a male, but Oddball in real life is a female.
Correct.
And that's kind of rude when you think of it, hey?
Yeah, I'm not sure why or what the reason was, but yeah, very good pickup from you there.
But it does star, one of the stars is Ellen Tudyk in Oddball, and I am a huge Firefly fan. It was this. Have anybody heard of Firefly? Anyways, he played Wash, the pilot in Firefly. He's in the movie. Okay. Anyways, Andrew, you got your hand up. Do you have a quick comment before we go to Tracy?
No, thanks, Jason. No.
Nope. Oh, okay. All right. Over to Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
Hi. I've been sick, so I'm still scratchy. But I wanted to know if it's like border collies herding sheep or something. If that's like the type of thing it is that you do or that you work with. And if you have any like cute dog penguin interaction stories.
Great question. So the dogs that we use, they are a bit different to herding breeds. So your things like border collies, kelpies, healers, those kind of breeds do, as you say, herd livestock and so sheep and cattle and that kind of thing. Whereas our dogs protect. So they generally won't interact with what they're protecting. But if something is threatening what they're protecting, that's when they'll act, and they'll act on that threat. So they'll either bark to scare it away, or if they need to, they'll chase and do whatever they have to do. So a bit different than herding breeds, but certainly still a livestock breed. And the second question I have actually forgotten. Could you please remind me, Tracy?
Religion, politics, Bruno, and the big one, death. The list of things we don't talk about. For something that affects everyone on this earth, why do we avoid it at every turn? Even more unacknowledged, child loss. Haven Landscape of Loss recognizes whether it be ourselves or someone we know, everyone is touched by miscarriage, stillbirth, infant, or child death. This podcast explores the vast landscape of loss and all those who are affected. If you or anyone you know has experience in loss, take the first step, listen, and introduce them to Haven Landscape of Loss today.
Okay. Well, this is probably a no, since you kind of just said that dogs don't interact with the penguins, but I want to know if there was like any cute stories about the dogs interacting with the penguins.
I personally don't have any stories about the dogs interacting with the penguins. There is probably one of the most famous photos of the Middle Island Project is one of our original dogs with a penguin with their noses touching, and it's such a beautiful photo. We'll see if we can find that after this maybe and share it. But otherwise,
is that in the Twitter feed for Middle Island? I can find it and put it up on in the nest.
It might be.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw it, and I was like, oh, that is the cutest thing. I was actually just creeping on the Twitter feed and like loving every single picture.
But yeah, when the dogs are over on the island, there's actually a boardwalk. So that boardwalk was constructed before any of the conservation efforts. Well, that's a lie, sorry. It was constructed to try and keep people off the rest of the island. So just to keep them confined to the boardwalk, so to prevent that trampling of nests and that kind of thing that I mentioned earlier. And that's what we use now when we're accessing the island, and that's where the dogs stay. So they know to stay on that boardwalk, so they don't tend to interact with the penguins. But we do also have some other pretty cute photos of when we're down handling the penguins for the monitoring of the dogs just watching, and it's so cute. And, you know, they're so focused on it because they know that that's what I need to protect. Like, you're not hurting it, are you? Like, making sure everything's okay.
Oh. Well, that is adorable. Tracy, there's a photo up in the nest of one of the dogs with its nose touching a penguin. Oh my goodness. So you can take a look at that. I kind of feel like Beaker would not be a good candidate to guard these little penguins, Chris.
Absolutely not. She would be like, let me just chase you. Although today she did well with the loons. Paddleboard. I thought she would be like, oh, hello, loon. I'm going to come retrieve you. But she didn't.
I think Beaker might be closer to a fox with the penguin. Like it might be a Buster situation. And then I was also going to say that Ginger is Jason's favorite animal, or, you know,
yeah, she's
because you're talking about that before. Adam has Beaker, and
yes, we posted a photo, or Chris posted a photo of the cat interacting with me. We have this cat now. It's a little off topic, but Ginger is sitting right beside me while we're talking, folks. I think she's picked me as her person, which is really hilarious because I am allergic to cats up till this point. Okay, so one more thing before we go to Paul. Paul, I see you. I'll come to you right away. Lillian, have you seen the old Looney Tunes cartoon where the sheepdog and the wolf or the coyote come in and they punch in the clock? They're like friends, and they punch in, and the sheepdog just destroys the coyote over and over and over again, and then they punch out. That's kind of like what this reminds me of, is like these Marumas, they could punch in and they're like on the clock, just ready to mess up the foxes, and then they punch off the clock. I don't know if you've seen that Looney Tunes cartoon.
Oh, I haven't. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll have to add to my list.
I'll DM Middle Island. It's a series. It's like it's got Wile E. Coyote in it, but he's kind of not Wile E. Coyote. I'm not sure. Maybe he is Wile E. Coyote. I don't know. It's a take on. Anyways, okay. Over to Paula. Hi, Paula.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hi, Lillian. Fascinating. I'm just like, I love this story so much. And I know that it's not Wile E. Coyote. It's like Sam and Frank or something.
Yeah,
it's
Sam.
hysterical. Sam, yeah. Sam, I think, is the dog. I think, I don't know, but anyway, Lillian, gotta go on YouTube and see that because it's hysterical because they punch time clocks and it is pretty funny. But my question is, did you ever have to help a penguin in your home? You know, like if you had to take it in and help it along, like something happened and then release it again. Have you had that experience?
I personally haven't. The vet group in Warnable, so one of our big sponsors, will take in and provide any vet care to penguins if we need. And then there's a wildlife rescue, it's called Mosswood Wildlife near Warnable, so they take in a lot of penguins, or not a lot, but, you know, if we do get penguins needing it, they'll take them in and rehabilitate them and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I was thinking like orphans. Did you have a lot of orphan ones that you have? Like it's like something happened to the parents, or does some of the other penguins pick them up, or is that acceptable in something like that?
Well, actually, just recently on the ABC TV here in Australia, there was a Meet the Penguins sort of documentary that aired, and Paula from Phillip Island Nature Parks, where they have a massive penguin colony, she was saying that sometimes if a penguin lays an egg in a nest and then abandons it and a new penguin couple move in, that sometimes that penguin might end up hatching and those parents will take it on like their own. I'm pretty sure that I interpreted it right, but yeah, so that's pretty cute.
Well, thank you very much for taking my question. It's very fascinating, and I can't wait to see the movie Oddball. Dogs are beautiful; they really are. They just look like massive, big white polar bear dogs. I love it. So, thank you again for such an interesting topic.
No worries, Paula. I'm very excited for you to watch Oddball. I'd love to see what you think of it too.
Okay, I will. I'll DM you if I can. I'll let you know. Thank you so much.
So, great question, Paula. Thanks for asking that. I have two. I found that clip on YouTube of Meet the Penguins first look. So I will put that into kind of the nest. Oh, I'm just trying to find where I've been like putting everything. I think I've been putting it everywhere, so that's not super organized. Anyways, that will be up in the nest if people want to take a look at that. And my other question is the original Swampy and the biologist still around, or like, do they still live near Warnable?
Swampy's not involved in the project anymore.
Okay.
And David is working on the Zoos Vic program with the Maramas, but he's certainly around to help us out when we need. I think he's helped in dog training along the way and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, Chris is my co-host is driving to get our son, so we can't rely on her right now.
I'm reliable.
Are you okay? Well, hopefully you're not like doing this while you're driving.
No. But one thing that I really appreciated from my creeping on the website as well is they did say, these dogs are amazing, but do your research. They're more of the protective breed that needs like a large space, like a rural area. They're not for the urban or like a small area location, because I think sometimes dog breeds get romanticized when they are in a movie and everybody's like, oh, I want one of those. But as we always say in our other spaces, that you want to find a good match for you and for the dog. And that's just what I was thinking.
Join us on Education Matters New York for a look at current issues in New York State and across the country. I'm your host, Wayne Ackles, and we'll be speaking with current and retired educators to discuss perspectives, trials, and solutions that we are experiencing in today's unique education climate. Education Matters New York is available across the podcasting universe. Give us a listen.
Yeah, that's a very great point there, Chris. Yeah, obviously the Maramas, they're quite lovely and beautiful to look at. But yeah, if people are considering getting one, definitely need to do some research because they are a working breed. We talked about that a lot of their guarding is natural instinct and you can't turn a dog's instinct off. So yeah, they definitely, if people are looking at getting Marama, need to do their research and make sure that they're suitable for what their yard and where they are and what they're protecting and that kind of thing.
Yeah, when Beethoven, have you seen the movie Beethoven? Or Beethoven with the St. Bernard? It was a really popular kids movie.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of it. And if I have seen it, it would have been a long time ago. So maybe I'll have to add that to my list as well.
Did that have Steve Martin in it? Was he the dad? Anyways, after that movie, there was like tons of people wanted St. Bernards. And they just couldn't handle how big the St. Bernards are. Enormous dogs and slobbery, wonderful dogs. But that was the big problem is they, like Chris, that was a good point. People romanticized this dog, got this dog, and they're like, this is not the dog I wanted. They live in an apartment and they got slobber on their walls and they have a 160-pound animal. So, I'll bring Brenda up, and Brenda, you can be our last speaker, and then we'll wrap up the space. Is that okay, Lillian? Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Oh, right. It's like it's almost lunch for you, right? I'm like, Lillian might be getting tired. No, it's midday for you in Australia right now.
Yeah, it is.
You might be getting hungry for lunch. Brenda, hi. Do you have a question for Lillian?
Just a comment about what Chris just said. I actually had a guardian dog that was an Akpash dog, and they're very similar to Marama dogs. They look the same, a little slimmer, but still the same and tall and big. And when I got him, the Humane Society didn't know what he was. I discovered what he was afterwards, and he definitely decided he was protecting and guarding all the humans from all the animals, including all the dogs. So and you couldn't change him from that. But he also did protect all the humans. He actually broke up a burglary across the road from my house one time. He stopped someone breaking in because that's how much of a guardian he was. And I didn't even know he had decided that was his protecting area. But you're right. Like, you really need to know what you have when you have it, because you can't stop them from doing it.
Good point, Brenda. Thank you. Lillian, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up? Thank you so much for being our guest tonight, by the way.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Thanks everyone for coming along and listening and for your questions. I will just say, if anyone feels like they want to and is able to, if you jump on our website, warnablepenguins.com.au, I can share that after as well. But we do have a link to a PayPal donation with all those funds going back directly into running the project. So just if anyone was interested, just thought I'd share that as well.
Okay, and do any of our speakers have any follow-up questions before we wrap things up? So that's Paula, Ramona, Tracy, Brenda, or Andrew.
Well, I would just like to apologize for letting that other speaker up and having that happen in our space. Our space is supposed to be a wholesome space, and I apologize for that.
No apologies needed from you guys. Thank you for hosting this. It's a risk that you run on socials, and Chris, I know how caring you are, so don't carry it with you. Their actions don't reflect us.
Yeah,
it reflects
I ditto
them.
that. Absolutely. It's not your guys' fault. You can't control what you don't know it's going to happen. So you guys rock. So no worries.
Well, some people open their mouth and you realize they don't have a brain. So that's what we learned today. Lillian, thank you so much for being our guest tonight. And we will, if you DM me that link to the website, I'll tweet. If you DM me that and maybe some information about the PayPal, the Bunsen and Beaker account can tweet out about that after this space. Does that sound good?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Again, just thanks for having me. It's been so much fun. Definitely be keen to come back and speak to you all again. It's been a great way to spend my morning.
Aw. And you know what? Because we're triple casting and because there's a large number of people in this room, a lot more people around the world learned about Middle Island. Like between Wisdom and Clubhouse and here, there's probably 100 people were listening. And then I am recording this and I keep the recordings up for 24 hours. And then I ship the recording off to our Pawpack, the patrons. And then in 2 to 3 weeks, this episode will also be on the podcast, the Science Podcast, as bonus content. So anybody, will get the word out about Middle Island one way or the other.
That's awesome. Education is a massive part of what we do. And the more people that are aware of what we're doing and the different methods of conservation out there, that's, awesome. So sounds great.
Yay. Okay, I think we'll wrap up. It's the wrap-up music. This is how I know when I'm editing. It's wrap-up. This is why I do it. Thank you so much, Lillian, for being our guest tonight. Learning everything about these amazing dogs and the hard work the humans are doing to protect these tiny penguins. Please Google image the penguins from Middle Island. They're little, tiny, adorable things. And, it's easier, I guess, to get behind protecting adorable, cute penguins. But around the world, dogs are protecting other animals and finding endangered animals for conservation efforts. Dogs are just amazing. I have something special to announce. We moved one of our extra science spaces from next week to actually this week on July 14th. So I believe that's, what's July 14th? Is that Thursday?
It sure is. Thursday.
Yeah, so this Thursday at 6:30 Mountain Time, 8:30 Eastern, we have a nuclear-powered panel. 4 nuclear engineers are going to be our speakers on July 14th at 6:30, and they all are experts in a different area of nuclear energy. So if you have questions about nuclear energy from what is it? What are the applications? What's the future? Is it safe? How do we keep it safe? We have this amazing panel that I've assembled for everybody. That's going to be on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time or 8:30 Eastern. So I'd love for you guys to show. I'll have some more information about it. We had to move it to make sure everybody could attend. So I'm really excited about that. And then we have Pet Chat on Saturday, our common Pet Chat. So that's everything. Chris, do you have anything else to say before we finally say goodbye?
I would just like to thank Lillian again for coming and for advocating for animals and for being such an excellent spokesperson for the Middle Island Penguin Project. I really appreciate everything that you said and shared with us, and it's just so awesome.